In this video, let's take a look at the replacement of skies, which is a new tool that was added to Photoshop with the October 2020 update. It's such an easy process, I'm not sure we could really call this video a tutorial. The good news is we can use our own sky images, not just the presets offered by Photoshop. I think that's a good thing for those of us who like our final images to be all our own work. Any sky that we replace needs to be balanced with the foreground, or the image is just not going to look right. Now that balance could be the light direction, maybe the scale of the clouds we're adding if we are adding clouds, which I think most of the time we will be, but there's also colour and tone. Here's an image I shot last year with a Canon 5D Mark IV. It would have been nice if the sky had a few clouds, just to add that little more impact to the subject. The image has been processed through Adobe Camera Raw, so let's see what we can do with this new replacement sky option. We need to begin by going up to our Edit menu at the top left and choosing Sky Replacement. The one thing you'll notice with this tool, it will always apply the last sky that you selected. So as you can see here, it's applied the one you can see in this drop down panel. If I do click and drop that panel down and close up the blue skies, you can see that Photoshop gives us three sets of presets: blue skies, spectacular skies, and sunsets. Now they're not going to work very well with the image I have on screen, but some of the blue skies will and already are, as you can see here. So let me just drop down the blue skies and we'll select something a little different to what we're seeing here. Let's go down to this one and select it. You will see it selected automatically. Now we get a couple of choices when we're outputting our work here. We can just output to a duplicate layer, which I think everyone understands what that is. It'll leave the original image in the layers you can see top right, but just create a new one. But we can also create new layers. I'm not entirely sure why I would want to do this, as I'll explain in a moment, but let's select it and click OK. Now you can see what Photoshop does in the layers palette on the right hand side. Now one of the problems I see here, and it's not just this particular tool, it's modern software in general, is that to get the best from the layers we can see above, we're going to need to gain some experience of using this tool. And we're only going to do that if we use it fairly often and over a period of time. And that is the problem. Often we don't do quite enough of this type of work to develop that experience. The good news is though that the tool does seem to work well most of the time without much help from us. So as we can see here, we've got a series of layers above. The top one is or does contain a layer mask. I've noticed that if I hold the Alt key and click the mask so we can see that, we seem to have a bit of a gap where the word on the digger can be seen, and also some of the other words here. So it does give us the opportunity to select black as our foreground color and a brush and make the mask a little more solid in places if there was a need to do that. But just for the moment, what I'd like to do is to return to my original, and we'll take a look at one or two of the other options. Now, one of the good ways to do this is to hit the F12, which will always revert back to your previously saved version of the image. So let's make our way to the top left of the screen once again, and we'll have another look at Edit. Sky Replacement. Remember, it's going to automatically apply the sky we previously saw. Let's try another. I did show one in the introduction to demonstrate how picking the wrong sky just doesn't work. if I close these down and I go to my spectacular skies, you can see there's some pretty nice skies in here, but I'm going to suggest that none of them are going to work too well with this image because they're just out of balance. But let's go back to the blue skies and we'll try something else. We picked this one a few moments ago. Let's have a look at this one down here. I think that one instantly works a little bit better for me. Now we do get the opportunity with a slider here to make these thumbnails bigger or smaller, but if you want to get to the sliders underneath here, just click into the surrounding area and there we have a series of sliders. Once again, we're going to need some experience here. Now apart from the scale slider above, which is going to do exactly what it says, it'll make the sky smaller. Sometimes we can go too small, as you can see here, but we can certainly increase the size, but we need to be balanced, as I said in the introduction. We'll soon find something that suits us. But apart from that scale slider, I'm not sure I can talk intelligently about what each of these other sliders do, because I think their effect is going to vary greatly from image to image. And once again, we're going to need to gain some experience over time to get a better feel for what they do. However, let's take a look at them anyway. Moving up to Shift Edge, I think sometimes to get a feel for sliders, it's a good idea sometimes to move them to the extreme left or right, or in this case to the extreme left, and get a feel for what they do. So let's move this slider to the left, and you can see what it does, but obviously it doesn't do a wonderful job there. And if we go to the other side, well, you can see it's dragged the sky down and we can almost see the sky through the, I think that's china clay, but I'm not entirely sure. But you can see we'll need to fine tune these occasionally, but this one seems to look, if the setting or the 0 setting is the default, then I think we're getting a little bit of a result here. If we just give it a little bit of a minus, it gives a little bit more of a bold blue behind the digger. The fade edge, well, let's drag it right down. You can see what that's doing. Subtle changes which are going to be more personal than right or wrong. Now I think perhaps the brightness and the temperature sliders may be a little more familiar to us. If we drop the brightness down, we can see exactly what that's doing, and if we take it up, well, I think that was pretty obvious. So that's going to be useful if we just want to balance the sky a little bit. If you remember, one of the first blue skies I applied to this image was a little bit on the pale side, so the brightness may have helped there. Sometimes we have warmer tones and cooler tones. Here they're fairly cool, so perhaps we would want to bring the temperature down, not too much, but here we seem to have a little more scope, but we can do that, and I think here a little more blue would work quite well. The other option, which I think we're probably going to use a few times, is the flip. Now when I've tried this with various preset skies, sometimes when you flip it, there's an instant recognition that it's just not working that way around. Now here it seems to work either way, but with some skies you'll notice that as soon as you flip it, there's a definite no, and I found myself flipping back. The next option we can see is lighting mode. There's only two in here, multiply and screen. Now I've watched videos on YouTube about this too, and somebody said that the multiply option seems to work better with strong colours, and I guess they meant the sunset or vivid colours. But if we select screen, you can see it's affected the foreground more than the background. So you've only got two selections, so not a great problem here to try both of them. Lighting adjustment and color adjustment is the next two sliders before we make a decision on how to output the result. Now the default settings here seem to be 50 in the lighting adjustment and 35 in the color adjustment. and these seem to affect the foreground more than the sky. So if I step this slider halfway down, you can see it's brightening up the digger quite nicely, and if I go the other way, it's darkening it slightly. So we can always reset this by just over typing 50, but I quite like the way it lightens it a little bit there. And the color adjustment, well, let's step it way up and see what it does. And way down, very little at all, so we'll just reset that back to 35. You can see what I mean about these sliders needing a degree of experience, and I'm sure it'll come in time. Then of course what I've spoken about before is our output. Now we can output to new layers, but I'm going to go to a duplicate layer here and click OK. Because I think if I was looking to apply some clouds to that particular shot, I'd be pretty happy with that result. What I'm not so happy about is the fact that the sky is not mine. So what I'm going to do here is to highlight the layer I've just created and hit the delete key, because what I'd like to do is to have a look at using our own skies. So once again, we need to go back into the edit menu to replace skies. Now as we do this, it is going to reapply the last sky that we selected, so we'll just give it a few seconds. I'm going to go to the drop down options here, close up the blue skies, because down here we've got a couple of icons that we need to use. I'm going to create a folder for my own skies, so when we click that, we're invited to give it a name. I'll OK that. You can see the folder is open, so if I go to the little plus here, I should be able to locate skies of my own. We can only import one at a time. I'm sure that will change in the future, but at the moment, if we hit the little cross in the box and we navigate to wherever we've got our skies, I'm going to select a blue sky that I think is going to work. I think one or two of these would, but some of the others wouldn't for the reasons we've already discussed. I'll open that. It gives us the opportunity to obviously rename this sky if we want to, and click OK, and there it is applied. Now let me click just outside that little box and we'll try that flip. Now I think this one is more or less what I was explaining earlier on. I think this sky works miles better when it's that way around. And when we move on, of course, we do have a move tool as well. So if I've got quite a large sky, which I have here, I could move my digger into the clear part of the sky, or I could move it anywhere I wish to get the effect that I'm looking for. I've got quite a bit of scope with this one, which is not too bad. I think that looks pretty good. And I'm not sure I'd want to do a great deal more. It looks pretty good. I may want to drop the brightness down a little bit. I may want to just drop that lighting adjustment as we did before, which brightened up the digger. The only other thing was, what was I thinking about? I was just about to say something and it's just gone out of my mind, but not to worry. We can see the result here even before we click OK. But let's do it and just have a couple of seconds taking a look at how effective Photoshop was at replacing that sky. Now a few moments ago I highlighted the sky and deleted it and went back to reapply another, but of course we don't have to delete that layer. If we just turn it off for a moment and reselect the basic image, then we could go back into the replacement sky and try something else. At the end of the day we could have 3 or 4 we can jump between to choose the one we like the best. So once again, let's try one more sky from my set by going back up to the edit menu and sky replacement. Here, just giving it a few seconds to apply, drop that down, select another sky. which one looks appropriate. Let's try this one here, Sky 7. There we can see the difference. Once again, we have the move tool. We have the scale. I don't know how much scope we've got here. Not as much as the previous sky. I suppose it's going to depend on the resolution of the sky you've shot. So that looks about where I can go with that. I can't go up too far because of the straight edge, as you can see. So that's got to be dropped to there. But I do have the usual changes here. We get some options up at the top left. The move tool, which we've been using, the zoom tool, which I think most people are familiar with, and the hand tool, which just moves the picture much the same. I'm afraid I wish I could talk intelligently about this tool, but I'm unable to do so. Forgive that sound if you can hear it as I increase the size of my brush using the square bracket keys. It seems to be sending my computer a little bit crazy. But up at the top left of the screen you can see we've got some brush options and they're set to plus at the moment. And we can start to do some work. As you can see, I can just lighten certain areas. So again, I would have to say the same thing as I've said with the other sliders, that we're going to need just a little bit of experience with the tools that we're given to replace a sky. But as you've seen, most of the time it does a pretty good job by itself. Now, as you can see by the spinning round of the screen, I don't think there's a great deal more I can say about the replacement of skies. I've just applied 4 different ones which we can take a quick look at to bring this video to a close. So there's the first of them, very quick and easy to apply. Just 1 or 2 little tweaks, just making the sky a little tiny bit more blue and doing a little bit with the digger. Maybe this would be one of those skies where we could use the mask to maybe mask away the, because we've got a bit of a see-through, I think, there. So maybe we should investigate those masks as well. This one I've included because I flipped it over and it just doesn't look right. And if you flip it back the other way, which I haven't done to demonstrate, but you'll soon see that it looks much better than it does here. This one works particularly well, even with the dark base of the sky. That seems to work well with the power of the digger. And of course, the one I've put at the top. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm sure you know the drill, but if you subscribe to my channel, that's one thing, but you won't be notified until you click the bell and then click the all option. That way, whenever I post another video, you'll be notified, which is very convenient. And if you think the video is worth it, give us a thumbs up too, so other people may know that it's worth a view. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.